Hello, everyone, and welcome to the District 38's first Parent Safety Academy. Tonight, our conversation is going to be about school security. And obviously, an event happened toward the end of last school year in the country, which had a lot of parents asking a lot of questions. And we came up with this idea to try to share a little bit about what we do here in the Lewis Palmer School District. And we'll have three more that we'll talk about a little bit later. But first, tell you about me. I'm Dennis Coates. I'm the Chief of Safety and Security for the district. This is my 6th year in that role, 20-year law enforcement here, and was blessed enough to, my last 9 years, work as an SRO for the Lewis Palmer School District. And prior to that, I did 5 years of DARE in the elementary schools in the Widefield and Falcon School District. So that's a little bit about me. I have 2 kids here in the district, and so when I talk about a parent and some of the other things I'm learning as they get older, that some of the things I didn't quite understand a few years ago, I'm understanding today. But I do want to introduce you to the rest of my team up here, and we'll start off with Corey.
So I am Deputy Corey Adkisson with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. I am currently assigned as the School Resource Officer at Palmer Ridge High School. Although I'm assigned at Palmer Ridge High School, I help out at all the other schools as well. So I've been with the Sheriff's Office for just shy of 10 years now. When I first started with them, I worked at the county jail as floor security, just briefly, about 6 months. I then transferred to patrol, where I worked the night shift for about 5 years. Patrol is your typical law enforcement position. It's where you're in a patrol car, you're responding to 911 calls and investigating crimes. I then transferred to School Resource Officer. I was the SRO at Falcon High School for 2 years. And then last year I got the opportunity to come work in District 38, which for me, it truly is a blessing. I grew up in District 38. I actually went to Kilmer Elementary School, Lewis Palmer Middle School, and Lewis Palmer High School. So it's a lot of fun being back in the community where it really does mean a lot to me. So I'm enjoying it a lot, and yeah, just going from there.
Good evening. My name is Todd Ronk. I am retired from El Paso County Sheriff's Office after 21 years. I spent time in patrol in investigations with homicides, sex crimes, and financial crimes. I retired 4 years ago. When I retired, I was a school resource officer here in the district for 2 years. And now I'm assigned to the elementary schools and the high schools.
Deputy Chad Wheat. I've been employed with the Sheriff's Office since January of 2012, so just over 10 years for myself. Like Corey, had a short stint in our floor security division and in our intake and release booking in the jail. Transferred out to patrol, where I spent most of my time on swing shift patrol. I have done some 4.5 years on our SWAT team. I've been a part of our crime reduction unit, which is a fugitive apprehension team in targeting crime, particular pattern crime. Did a little bit of time on our K9 unit, and then was back on SWAT, and now wanted an opportunity, having been through some incidents, that I wanted to impact kids. And that opened the door up to me to put in for the school resource officer position. And I've been now here coming up on my 3rd year, and it's been life-changing and eye-opening to see how much of an impact officers and even campus supervisors and their relationships with these students and what these students are doing to really build these relationships, not that we're seeing on social media, but even better, positive ones.
Good evening. I'm the newest member of the team. I started in January of this year. I'm a campus security officer up at Lewis Palmer High School. I retired in December after 27 years in law enforcement. I did my first 13 years in Los Angeles County, did a couple years with Denver PD, and I did my last 12 years with Monument Police Department. Not much I haven't done in law enforcement, from SWAT to Aero Bureau in the helicopters to field training officer, firearms instructor. I mean, you name it. In 27 years, I've done it. When I retired in December of this year, the only place that I wanted to work was Lewis Palmer School District. I have 2 kids that graduated here, a daughter that graduated in 2018 and a son that graduated in 2020. I have deep, deep ties to this school district, and I knew that when the time came that I was finally going to retire, I was only going to work for this school district. I've been at Lewis Palmer High School, like I said, since January of this year, so just over 6-7 months. I reiterate what Chad said, Deputy Wheat. This is a relationship building position to be in, with the very strong tie to keeping not only the students but the staff safe as well. So welcome. Thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, and as you can tell, I'm very lucky and blessed to have this team. And I think if you ask any of your kids, they may not know their name, but if you describe them, they'll know who you're talking about. One of the things that I enjoy about tonight is I think we've spent a lot of time, and rightfully so, over the last couple of years talking about how tough it is to raise kids, how tough it is to be a kid these days. You know, most of us here, when we were growing up, we didn't have social media the way it is today, and you know the old story about, you know, I knew when I was supposed to go home is when the lights came on, the street lights came on. Totally different world out there today. You know, our parents could kind of have an idea where we are, and yet kids today can go down and open up their phone and have access to millions of people across the world, let alone just in your neighborhood. So one of the things I've thought about is I have a high schooler now and a middle schooler, is just relating to you guys. I know how tough it is to be a parent these days too. Yes, it's tough to be a student, but it's also really tough to be a parent, and anything we can try to do to make your lives easier is something we wanted to do here in the district. Kind of to set the tone tonight, as far as questions and things that we were going to talk about tonight, is we're kind of, when we talk about security, we're not really talking about discipline. Nobody up on this panel is a final decision maker when it comes to consequences for things that kids do, or, you know, whether they're suspended or whether they're miss recess or whatever it is. We do have a voice in the room when those things happen, but tonight we're talking about security and not getting a whole lot into the discipline aspect of schools. When I retired from, and actually I went through the academy with Mr. Ronk, so seeing how old he's getting is reminding me of myself as he's talked about his long years. One of the things when I left and took this job, we didn't have security in D38 back 6 years ago. There was the schools, that was, you know, and you might have somebody at the front door with a campus supervisor role, but no dedicated security team. And when I took on, I kind of had a vision of where I wanted the district security to go, and I was very blessed to have a lot of friends who were retiring as I was retiring, and brought them over. And a couple of them have left and gone off and are doing the true retirement thing these days. But I'm blessed while I have these 4. It's very rare that all of us do get together. But I can tell any parent that has heard or talked about anything to do with SROs in a negative light, because things do happen. We are really blessed to have these 2 gentlemen here in District 38. I think any teacher, I think any administrator, and I think parents who have been involved with them would tell you that they're not there to arrest kids. None of them. It's really about you know, building those relationships. And one of the reasons that I love this job today is, after being in law enforcement for 20 years, I kind of felt like I got into it to stop people from committing crimes and to try to prevent it. And sometimes the world gets so crazy where all you do is feel reactive, and you're coming there after things have been done, and you're just kind of trying to clean up the pieces, where I truly believe this team we have a chance to be proactive and to stop things every day. And that's a pretty good feeling when you get up and you talk about purpose of your day and purpose of your work, is if you can prevent actions from happening and things occurring. That's a pretty blessed job. So we do have armed security in the district. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about how many and where and all of those, but we do have, and it was a bigger argument 6 years ago when I went to the school board and tried to get an armed security team. Things were a little bit different back 6 years ago. I don't think there's many people out there who would say that schools don't need it today. But I did make a promise to the Board of Education, and I will uphold that I will never put somebody in this position who I'm not 100% sure is in it for the right reasons, which means they're in it for the kids, and two, that I would trust going into battle with. So I'm real happy and wanted to take a minute and talk about the team. And as you guys see them around, I would encourage you to go up and chat with them.
So now we're going to talk about kind of relationship building. A huge part of us as school resource officers is building relationships, getting to know the students. I mean, that is literally probably 99% of my job, is getting to know the individuals. When we build relationships, when we get to know these kids, a lot of stuff transpires. One, they trust us. We always teach them, if you hear something concerning, if you see something, report with them, they feel comfortable coming to us with things that are concerning. I mean, that was literally my day today, was students who had something going on, and because I have a good relationship with them, they know me, we talk on a daily basis, they brought those problems to me, which allows me to proactively get involved. And then by proactively getting involved, because I have relationships, I can then mentor them into making good, healthy choices. So my goal as a school resource officer, and I'm sure Chad's is the same, it's not to go after kids, it's not to lay down consequences, it's not to charge them with a crime. Do very, very little of that, to be honest. Most of it is very proactive. If we hear something's going on, we get involved, we see how we can help. We notify parents so they can be part of the solution as well. So that is truly what being an SRO is all about. I spend my time, obviously, there's a big part of safety, but a big chunk of that safety comes from the relationships. So I spend whatever free time I have walking the halls, just meeting with students, getting to know them, getting to know their names, and it's amazing what can transpire from that. So I think that's probably the most important thing that we do, because then we can successfully mentor these kids into making good choices. And again, they will come to us if they hear something, if they see something. And that's a key to safety and security in a school. So, you got stuff to add, Chad?
No, I would second everything Corey just said, very much in line. A lot of it for us is restorative, and just encouraging amongst these kiddos when we're in contact with them that we're human too. We're going to make mistakes, and as long as you're willing to take accountability for those mistakes and we can fix it at the forefront here, let's figure out a way to, how did it impact those around me? What did it take away from administrative? What did it take away from my day's worth of work? And how does it affect my family and the decisions that I make that could have potential consequences of criminal charges or delinquent charges? So just to make them think a little bit more about their actions, and then, coming to the solution of how they resolve it. And that's the biggest thing. And then, knock on wood, like a lot of mine is, I haven't had to charge in 2.5 years, 3 years. It's been very minimal. I maybe wrote 2 summonses, but a lot of it's been able to just work with these kids because they trust myself, they trust Corey, and knowing that, hey, I made a mistake and this is how I fix it. And that's one thing I've pressed upon them in some of the little classes that we get into in study halls. I like to spend time in classrooms. I like to go to gym class, wood shop class, and just being present in student entry, student exit, lunches, like just building those relationships. And here in a moment, we'll play a little video. This is a prep assembly from last year's homecoming at Lewis Palmer High School, where I'm currently assigned. Like Corey, we bounce around to the middle school and elementary schools, and we do get in those areas where we like to get to Prairie Winds, Lewis Palmer Elementary, Palmer Lake, where we want to go out and we want to participate in recesses. We want to participate in whether it's reading a book with the kiddos, just to start building some of those foundation relationships of just knowing that we are good and we're there to help. And that's what we do. So,
And that's what I found, having been the SRO up here for 9 years. I continually meet kids who recognize me before I recognize them, and them talking about, hey, do you remember this, and do you remember that, and thanks for this. And so I can only tell that all those efforts you're putting in now will come back 10 years from now. If you don't think these guys have an impact on the student body, this is a last minute thing. I had a little clip from something that happened in California, and Mr. Belcher helped us to try to quickly. So it may not be the best cut, but this is from homecoming last year. And mechanically, we'll see if we can. How do I?
just hit the
Hit play.
No, but it. There we go. So just a little piece to, when you think about the SROs, there's a lot more to it than why they're there. And part of that is, I think you could just tell by the reaction of the kids. I don't think any of them were afraid or thinking he was there to anything but help them. So I'm glad he showed that. I don't know about the cameraman. We'll have to see who that is. But a little clip so that you could kind of see what goes on. I'll have John and Todd kind of touch a little bit. I know a lot of times people ask me, well, what do they do in security during the day? And this is just a real rough view, because I can tell you the thing I love about this job, just like I did when I was in law enforcement, is no 2 days are ever the same, and you really don't know where you're going to be an hour from now. So I'll let them touch a little bit about what a day looks like for them.
Yeah, real quick, going back to that building relationships. Some of the things that Todd and I do during the day is, watching and monitoring the cameras. And, when I click on the gymnasium camera and PE classes in there playing kickball, and I see Deputy Wheat in there sweating profusely and playing kickball with the kids. The commander in me says, oh boy, don't roll an ankle. I don't need you to be. The cop in me says, attaboy. That's a way to show them you're not a big, tough policeman, that you're there for the kids. And the dad in me says, my kids have someone when I'm not there that they can confide in. So I just wanted to touch on that, because when we talk about watching the cameras, it's daily that I turn those cameras on. And if Chad's not out playing soccer with the soccer team or playing kickball or basketball, something's wrong. So going into the day in the life, I get a lot of the my guys that are still police officers, and they go, aren't you bored over there? Don't you get bored? And I got to be honest, I thought, this isn't going to be, responding on calls for service and car chases and, the helicopter up above. I'm going to be working security in the school. But I got to tell you, from the time I get there until the time that school bell rings at the end of the day, we are busy nonstop. And has nothing to do with we're dealing with problem children all the time. And this is just a brief overview of the day. We get there at 6:30 in the morning. We start getting students at 6:30. We have cheer practice that starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. We have basketball practice that starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're there early in the morning for when the kids arrive. School doesn't even start for another hour and a half, and we're already there because students are arriving. We're checking the building. We sometimes, there's people that are working throughout the night in the building, so we want to make sure all the doors are secure before the kids get there. Checking students in is a big thing at the middle school and both of the high schools. Those students are supposed to have their ID with them, and they get scanned in the morning, and they get scanned out for lunch, scanned back in. They go to a doctor's appointment, they scan back out. At any given time, we know every student that is in that building. And there's a staff of 3 of us at Lewis Palmer High School that handle this. And then in the morning, checking the temperature. That's one of the biggest things. When you have a student that comes in every single day and they're laughing and joking and they'll give you a high five and Mr. John, Mr. Hudson, how was your night? Great. And then they come in that day and they're quiet and they hardly look up at you. They scan their ID and they give you that look of don't ask me any questions. Something happened that night. Something happened at home. Something happened on the way to school. And we'll usually refer those to Deputy Wheat, or if we can just pull the student aside and say, hey, things okay today? We're not only there for the safety and the security of the kid, we're also there to make sure that they're coming to an open and healthy environment, and that they know if something's going on, that they can come talk to us. And that's why there's 3 in the security team. At Lewis Palmer High School, we have 2 males and a female. If they want to talk to a female, we have a security member that is a female that they can sit down one-on-one with. During the school day, we control access. We are a closed campus. I graduated last year and I want to go see my teacher. You can do that at 2:52. Nobody is allowed to come into that campus unless they have an appointment, or that we get a visitor from a teacher. Everybody gets scanned into the Raptor system, which checks if they are allowed to be in a school with children present, and they get an ID, and then they are escorted to where they need to go. Anybody that has a visitor's pass on them is being escorted by someone with a district badge, or they are walking around with the district badge. If not, security and the teachers will stop and question that person. Assisting building administration, we do a lot of that. We help the custodians quite a bit. We help the assistant principals quite a bit. We review a lot of video footage for things that could or didn't happen. Watching cameras, monitoring the radios and the phone, helping the students and the staff. At the end of the day, we're clearing the buildings. We're making sure that the kids are getting safely out of the parking lot. Parents are getting safely out of the parking lot. Monitoring the signals for at least us here at Lewis Palmer High School. We're monitoring the signal at Higbee and Jackson Creek and making sure that it's given a good pull to get the students and the parents out of there so they're not stuck for 30 to 45 minutes in the parking lot. Making sure the students get home. This is something, that on Friday nights when we have the football games. Last Friday night was a PR game. We had a little bit of a lightning delay. Once the game was over with, Dennis and I stayed for an extra 30 minutes just to make sure every student that was sitting in a parking lot waiting for a ride from mom and dad got into a car with mom and dad. Setting alarms, after-school sports activities, weekend, non-school days. I mean, this is a not just a Monday through Friday, only when school's in session. The security staff spends quite a bit of time before school and after school at events. It seems like when I get to work at 6:30, the next thing I know, it's well past lunchtime and it's almost time for the students to leave the building. So we do a lot of stuff during the day, and it's never a dull moment. It's never routine every single day. Todd, do you have anything you want to add to that?
One of my biggest issues when I'm in a school is making sure exterior doors are secure. If you've paid attention to news, that's how bad people get into our schools for the most part. You ask any one of the teachers at any of my schools, ask them, what do you see Todd doing? He's pushing on doors, making sure they're closed and secure. So if I go around a school, that's the first thing I do when I get to the school, whether I'm at a high school or the last 4 years in the elementary schools. I'm pushing on doors. I don't want people in there. It says controlling access. We don't want anybody in there that is not supposed to be there. I had a teacher call me yesterday saying, hey, I'm in a school to do some work and the alarm's going off. What do I do? Here's what you do. Here's what you got to do. So it's not, like he said, it's not Monday through Friday. It's all the time. It's our livelihood. And I do want to touch on one other thing. When we talked about building relationships, after 30 years of total law enforcement time for me, when I'm in the elementary schools, I'm a grandfather, and my two oldest are 5 years old now. And I go into these elementary schools, and they wave at me with all 5 fingers, and they say, hi, Mr. Todd. Those are my kids. I don't even remember all their names, but those are my kids. And nobody is getting into our schools and hurting our kids. They got to go through me, and they got to go through John, and they got to go through our SROs. And that is our determination, and that is our goal. And we take it very seriously.
And I can touch on that a little bit more when we talk about during the day, and when we say watching cameras and monitoring radios and phones. Every one of our elementary schools and our middle school have radios where they can communicate situations or things happening, and Corey and I are able to monitor those channels. So as soon as we hear one of our smaller elementary schools, middle school, or even in the opposing high school, key up on something and something's going on, or if they're whatever requests they are, I immediately, Corey and I are on the phone with one another, and we're already moving to, and it might end up just start being, oh, we're just going to be doing an evacuation drill. But the ball was starting to roll, the mind was starting to tick. What am I going to? What am I doing? My plan was beginning. So I was starting my preparedness for what was I going to have to do when I got there. So we were always monitoring those radio transmissions from our smaller schools, our elementary schools, and then and ready to act on those as necessary.
And with that as well, a big part of what we do, we are listening to not just our radio schools, but our ones with the sheriff's office. So we know if there is something occurring in the neighborhoods of our schools, or if something is transpiring that could get nearby a school, so we can make those notifications, we can get there, and our number one priority is to make sure that school is safe. So even if it just means hanging out at the elementary school, just monitoring a situation that's occurring in a neighborhood, we are there just to make sure that that building is safe. So.
Good points. We have really good relationships with all of our first responders in the area, fire and police. The one thing I saw was the parking lots, and if anybody from the Department of Transportation is listening, if you cannot pave any of our roads in front of our elementaries, like at Kilmer and Lewis Palmer Elementary right now, we'd appreciate that. As we went through this slide, I was trying to what's important and what's not important. And one of the slides I always show the teachers when we do is this slide. And I tell them, okay, I want to shrink my PowerPoint presentation so that we can get out of here sooner. Can any of you tell me which one of these things absolutely can't happen tomorrow? There's a lot of them we hope don't happen, but they all could. And we have plans, and we've talked through all of these things. Last year, I believe we had everything but 2 of these. We didn't have to reunify, and we didn't have a death on site, although we did have one 30 yards from one of our schools. So all these things, we can't get into all these and how we respond and what our training are, but we've talked about all these things. We train for all these things, and we work with the staff so that they're prepared too. Going to talk a little bit about the verbiage. One of the things that I really wanted to make sure that parents left here with today is if you're not signed up for notifications from the school district, I would strongly encourage you to do that. And if you do get a notification, I want you to kind of understand what that notification means in which one of the kind of barrels that it fits into. A little story about the I Love You guys is, unfortunately, there's been a lot of them since then, but if you can go back to 2006, there was Platte Canyon High School. It was fairly new at the time up in Jefferson County, and there was a student named Emily Keys. And there's kind of some things that a lot of school districts learned and shouldn't happen in today's world. But again, 16 years ago, it did happen on this day. And, there was a gentleman sitting out in his car for, close to an hour. Nobody addressed him. Nobody kind of asked, what he was doing. He waited for the SRO to leave. He went in the school. He walked around the school for about 45 minutes. Nobody approached him. Nobody contacted him. Eventually, he took a class hostage. And long story short, there was one student killed, and that was Emily Keys. Just prior to Emily being deceased that day, she sent a text to her parents that said, "I love you guys," just minutes before the day that her life ended. And to her father's credit, John Michael Keys, he didn't go, he didn't blame everybody. He didn't go after. He just said, this shouldn't happen to any other parents, and I'm going to dedicate my life to make sure that no other parents get that text message from their son or daughter. And he went through all of the video and the talking with fire and police and everything that happened that day. And through his nonprofit organization, he came up with a standard response protocol, which every school in the district in the state of Colorado uses, and I believe 42 states and I want to say over 20 countries use it. And now you're seeing it at churches, apartment complexes. I oftentimes see CSPD using this terminology for apartment complexes or neighborhoods. So I wanted to make sure that parents understood the language and what the standard response protocol is and what those words mean to the schools. The first one is a hold, and this is the newest one. When the standard response protocol came out back about 18 years ago, it didn't have hold in there. But over the course of time, they felt there was one thing that they needed to add to the standard response protocol. I'll give, and if any of you guys can share as we go along, I'll give you the example when holds have been used in our district. Probably 99% of the time. If there's another one, somebody can add it for me. A hold is basically when we're telling the students and the teachers to, even if the bell rings, even if it's lunchtime, keep your kids in the classroom. Why would we do that? We've had medical issues, kids have had seizures, different PE injuries, whatever it may be, where we just don't want, we had a wood shop injury a little while back, where we just don't want kids passing in the hallway when we've got an injured student who's having an issue, or an adult. We've had a couple times we've done it for adults. We just want the students to stay in their room so that we can get medical into the building as fast as possible, get treatment to that student, or we can get that student to the nurse's office or that area. The other time we would likely put them on a hold is if we're bringing the canine units from the sheriff's office into the school district. We don't want a lot of kids running to the bathroom and flushing the toilets, for example, if we've got the canine units in the building. Can you guys think of other times, or I can't think of a time outside of a medical issue or canine in the building that we've ever put somebody on a hold. Can either one of you guys?
In my experience, you covered it. Medical's the typical one.
Yes.
That way, fire, medics can get in there and the hallways are clear. There's nothing delaying the medical getting to whoever needs to be seen.
And the last thing we want is video of it, kids pulling out their phone, putting it on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or whatever it may be. So we just try to eliminate that and make sure we get care as fast as we can to anybody that needs it. The second one, and I'll try not to use this terminology again, but those of you who heard it in the past may remember this is lockout. This was recently changed to secure. I think we can all understand that lockout and lockdown are very similar, and in a matter of going over the announcement, some teachers could mix that up or some students can mix that up, and there's a big difference of how we're going to react to secure and lockdown. So the terminology, if your son or daughter's building is in secure mode, okay, what that means is we believe if there's a threat in the area that it's outside of the building. The safest place for us to be during a secure situation is to be inside the building. So for example, in our district, probably statistically, it would probably be close between law enforcement activity near the school So if the SWAT team, for example, is going to hit a house that's in one of our school neighborhoods, they'll let me know, and we'll put that school on secure. And that just means we're going to get the kids off the playground, everybody inside, let that neighborhood issue transpire, and then we'll go back to normal. The other time in our area is wildlife. You know, whether it's bears at Palmer Ridge, mountain lions up at Palmer Lake, rabid dogs out on our playground, whatever it may be, a secure mode is a quick way for us to get everybody inside, make sure all those doors are locked, and continue on. A couple examples, we've had a pursuit that ended up in Palmer Ridge's parking lot a little while ago. Right in our front parking lot, we didn't know what was going on other than a bunch of cars and people running and bailing. So we just put the school on secure and we were all good. We recently had another one with the middle school last year where somebody in a pursuit bailed on Woodmore Drive. They were running in the area. We just put the Lewis Palmer Elementary, MA Elementary, and the middle school, put them on secure mode, and that just meant we brought everybody inside, locked the doors. But inside the school, nothing changes. Bell rings, they change classes, they have to go to the bathroom, they go to the bathroom, just nobody in or nobody out. Anything to add on any of the secure mode? All right, this one's going to probably change our day. Okay, if we go into a lockdown mode. Lockdown mode basically means we believe the threat is inside the building. Okay, so if we believe the threat is inside the building, what we're going to do is, over the announcement, you'd say, it would say locks, lights, out of sight, and that is a reminder that we do